Well, good morning and happy Monday to everybody. It's week 8 of Performing Arts Summer Camp. Yes, and it is 7 a.m. Well, actually, it's technically 6:59, but I am on the road on time today. No flat tires, everything's good. The plug that was put into the tire last week is holding up great until we get this thing in for service and the tire is replaced. So, bought enough time for me to get through this week. Hello, Jesse. Nice to see you. Top of the morning to you, too. I am sort of awake, not really. I'm just kind of, going with the flow of consciousness at this point, whatever level of consciousness I do have. So, with that being said, it's been a very interesting summer camp so far. This summer camp is unusual this year. Usually we go 10 weeks because of it's 5 sessions of 2 weeks each. But this year we're only doing 9 weeks, so it's kind of like 4.5 sessions, or as we like to call it, an abbreviated 5th session. So this is actually the last Monday that I'm going to be up this ridiculously early. As week 9 goes into, I think we will only go into like 4 camps active in week 9. So for many camps, this week is the last week of the season. So this slog going all the way up to Studio City First is definitely coming to an end. It's crazy because for 10 weeks or 9 to 10 weeks, depending on how our seasons go. It's insanity. It's absolute insanity every day, driving. And when I think about the fact that I've been doing this for 2 straight months, and this is the 6th summer that I've been doing this, it's one of those kind of things where it's like it's a job that you expect to do, but at the same time, it never gets any easier. And the season is no different, as it's been enjoyable, but at the same time, man, I'll tell you, sometimes it just takes a wallop out of you. And I say this as an experienced Uber and Lyft driver, and having done courier work ever since I came home to California. In some capacity, I've done some sort of delivery driving. It never does get any easier. Doesn't matter how comfortable your car is, doesn't matter how much you've prepared for it, doesn't matter how many protein snacks that you've stashed in your car, or the fact that, I'm really glad, one of the best investments I ever did this year was my Yeti. Yeah, I decided to go with a Yeti. If you guys remember the poll that I put out in regards to Yetis versus Hydro Flask, and it's probably one of the best investments that I made this season because it has come with me everywhere, and staying hydrated has been a huge help. I am going to be doing some more driving for work in mid-September, and I hope to be able to do some sort of Facebook Live when I do that, hoping that I'm in areas that have good cell phone reception. But, that Yeti's coming with me along with a few other things. And definitely looking forward to a nice change of pace, going into September. Substitute teaching is still, on the radar at the moment. And I've been throwing in job applications here and there. But, the hardest part about job applications is that you can give them to anybody, but the chances of them calling back are pretty slim. So I just keep throwing them out there, seeing what happens. It's like I'm hoping that whatever I did back finishing in April is going to be useful going into the last half of 2019, which pretty crazy that we've already made it that far. But sometimes you lose track of time. It's so easy to do, and definitely, the first half of the year, being so inundated with grad school and everything, all the other logistics in between, and just making sure that work was in order and everything like that, if I could survive 2019 in the fashion that I have, knowing all of the things that happened aside from grad school and all the things that I'm still dealing with right now, I think that, it's not going to be too much of an issue in regards to just being able to get through life. I think I'm going to be fine. So with that being said, I'm just passing LAX right now. Of course, it's one of those Indian gifts. You're flying down the freeway at about 55, 60 miles an hour, and then you reach the standstill stop. I'm watching the estimated time of my arrival in Studio City just incrementally go up. Like, it started at estimated time of arrival at like 7:44, and now it's up to 7:59, and I've got 20 miles of this to go, and it's just like, oh great, everybody wants to go in the same direction I do. One of the things that I learned about riding my motorcycle, though, at 6 a.m. on the way to work this morning, and I'm going southbound on Hawthorne, toward PCH, is that it doesn't matter if it's a 35 mile an hour zone and you're on your motorcycle and you're doing 45, the person next to you is doing 60, and you're all going to meet at the traffic light at the same time. There's no freaking reason why you should even be going that fast. But apparently this is kind of one of those things that people do in the morning for that, quick adrenaline rush, because it's cheaper than coffee. It doesn't make any sense. I've just been noticing that when I leave early in the morning to get to my office, that I'm being hot dogged by a bunch of people in older cars doing 60 miles an hour. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm riding my own ride and just making sure that person's not behind me. They can pass me all they want, but it doesn't make any sense at all, because we get to the traffic light, I'm right next to that person, and of course I'm judging them because, I'm sorry, you don't zip past me at 60 and a 35, even though I'm doing 45. We're all guilty. But dude, like, safety first, dude. Like, no, it's just not cool. I have enough issues with, vehicles coming within, inches of striking me. I really don't need that at 6 a.m., especially when I pretty much did not have any coffee. So that's kind of my issue with that. But yeah, I hope your weekend was pretty good. I have to say, after the craziness of last Monday and that whole thing with the tires, which, by the way, I was still able to knock myself back into normal schedule on Monday. I had to sacrifice lunch in order to catch up, but by that time, things kind of just evened out, and Monday was Monday, and then, it was a normal, 10, 11 hour day, so it was okay. And the rest of the week was a bit of a blur, just a lot of deliveries and just randomly more photos and video being taken, and just making sure that everybody got their goods, because I'm here shipping them all. It is my part of my duty to make sure that everybody has their stage props today. So I have a bunch of stage props in my car, not as entertaining as the ones from the last session where I had this random chicken behind me, peeking out. The props are actually to my right, and they're kind of long. That's kind of the best way I could describe these props. They take up almost the entire length of the 4Runner, and they're cool looking, but they're a bit more obvious than other props that I've had to take to camp. There's some other random things that I've had to deliver, like we had Little Mermaid one year, and there was this giant captain's wheel, and because I have to go to multiple locations, I had at least 3 of these in my car, and these things were just horribly huge, and they're heavy, so of course, it requires like 2 actors, because the actors are children, so it requires at least 2 of the larger actors to kind of heave it onto stage and just make sure that everybody's using it properly. And it'll be a while until we do anything aquatic, unless I don't know what's up the sleeve for next season, but if maybe we should just do the Life Aquatic. I don't think the kids would even understand that one, but it's okay. This particular one we're doing is based off the music of The Greatest Showman, so that's pretty cool that they get to sing those songs. I'm like, impressed at how quickly these kids learn these extremely complex lyrics, and even the ones that, even the camps that don't have students that have come back multiple times, these like newer students and things like that, it's actually quite amazing how quickly they learn these lines and everything. Every time I walk in to a camp and start taking pictures, and I realize, when I'm walking into these things that because of the time of the day that I'm coming in, I realize that I'm seeing them performing in different or rehearsing in different aspects of the process here, and I mean, I was in camps where the introduction song was already nailed within the first 4 hours of camp, and I went, "Are you kidding me? Like, how did you manage to do that?" But when you have a good focused group and you have teachers who are focused as well, and everybody's just doing their thing, and there's an established system that's working, then all is good, and just do your thing and put on a good show on Friday. So yeah, Friday is, like said, the last day for more than half of the camps for the entire 2019 summer season. And it's a bit bittersweet to see it go, but when I think about how many times I've seen this, every season has its quirks, and it's nice. I'm very grateful to have had the consistency of this camp program. Despite all of the chaos that has happened during the rest of the year since I joined this company in 2014. So, it's nice to have had this kind of consistency to some degree, because with everything else being as ridiculous and weird as it has been, and realizing that there are many places, even though they seem to be attempting to serve tomorrow's youth, they seem to suck at the adult aspects of it. I'm glad that I have this. It's good people, and I wish that I could work for them every day of the year, but we're a seasonal bunch, and I remain on call for most of the year, but it's always nice when I just get called up and said, "Hey, could you swing by the office and take care of something?" And I have no issue doing it, and that's the kind of ideal place that I'd like to stay and work at, because of just the positive environment. Even though it's hard work, I'm in a positive environment where no one's trying to kill each other, and the management is good, and you actually have an emotional investment that doesn't rip your heart into shreds when someone decides to make an awful choice and then take it out on you. So yeah, I do appreciate that very much. As for the weekend, though, last Friday I didn't really have too much going on. I'm thinking, okay, I'm totally zonked from the week. I've been driving everywhere. I'm going to go enjoy my day off. And lo and behold, I end up having to... I ended up in a situation. Of course, I always have a choice of whether or not I want to do something. But, two of my neighbors moved this week. And they're two neighbors I liked. And I had posted this because as of Friday, as of Friday night, there was already one new tenant in the first house that one of the families relocated, and I'm just like, wow, the body isn't even cold, and they've already got this cycle down, and everyone's already moving in and stuff like that. I just hope that this family is as nice as the last one. We've had some of the weirdest luck with some of the people that have lived in the house directly across from mine. The neighbors I had right before the ones that just moved had some sort of I don't even know if it was satanic worship in the house, but they had some weirdo shrine inside the house, and they had a meth lab in the garage. Of course, these people got evicted. I mean, although I found that it was very disappointing that these neighbors got evicted, because, I mean, if you're going to be making meth in your garage, wouldn't that be enough to pay the rent? I asked politely, only because, if you've been watching, I've never watched Breaking Bad, okay? This is just one of my admissions, but I've never watched Breaking Bad. But don't you make a bunch of money when you make drugs? I mean, just asking for a friend here. I mean, here I am, I'm thinking, how are some other ways that I can make some side income? And, and I'm already thinking that I have this weirdo gap until the school year starts for some districts that I cover. And, as a substitute teacher and all that. And I'm thinking, well, technically, just because, if I get caught making drugs, I probably won't be able to do substitute teaching. At the same time, though, it's not like I'm going to become a millionaire selling shit on Etsy. But I muse. But yeah, it'll be nice. And then my other neighbor who had been living at that house for the last, for as long as I've been living in this house, it's sad to see him go, but at the same time, I know that, he's just moving down the street, and he's a good dude, and finally being able to get the house that he wanted to get is like a big deal. So I'm like, I'm really happy for him. And and then the other family is moving out of state, and just with the prices in California, and I'm just a stubborn person. I just refuse to leave the South Bay. I work too hard to leave the Midwest, after that. And it was a depressing time when I left LA to go to the Midwest, because a bunch of people told me that if you leave now, you're never going to come home. And that's a pretty dark statement to tell somebody when the recession hits, you lose your job, and this is the only choice you have at the time because of the relationships you're in, and the situations that are posed in front of you, and someone says, once you do this, you can never go back. It's like, when has a finality been established with a life choice? I mean, unless it has to do with like death. When has when has any sort of decision been a final one? And it makes me wonder about that, because would it be difficult to return to California if you leave the leave to go? Yes, but I'm not the only person who grew up in California, moved out to the Midwest, and then was able to come home. I'm not the only one, and I know this for a fact. So, when people make these decisions to leave, or make these decisions to move, there are so many factors and reasons involved that any outsider person who sees the situation will not completely understand. So, there's a lot of life choices that people make, and and that's what they have to do. Ultimately, you got to do what you got to do, and you got to do you. So, if you're going to be one of those people that needs to go out of state, and because, getting a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with a shit ton of land for the cost of my rent. Yes, the mortgage in Idaho for a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with a giant lot that's at least 1.5 acres. The mortgage is as much as my rent. Here in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, single-car garage with 2 little spots, and the single-car garage is completely full of crap. Like, most of it's my crap, so I can call it crap. It's all about perspective, I guess. And I've lived in the Midwest long enough to know that the opportunities for me, for the work that I do and the specialty that I'm in, the farther I move eastbound, the less opportunities I do have, unless I make it to the East Coast, which I refuse to live there unless I'm given an offer that I really, truly cannot refuse, and I've exhausted, every possible reason why I shouldn't take it. That is, I'm such a hard sell. I remember when I was still doing this thing where I would be seeing people, which I found that to be kind of pointless right now. But there was a point where I was asked the question, would you move out of state again? And, oftentimes my answer would be, no, I'm seriously a very hard sell. I don't see any reason why I would want to move out of state again, especially after the emotional anguish that the last time I tried to do that, it caused me. And I realized that 5 years of that existence over there was enough to teach me enough lessons to know that when not if, but when I had the chance to come home, number one, I was going to jump at it, and number two, I was going to make my life better than the crap that I was settling for. And so, to answer the question on that, I'm an extremely hard sell. You would have to make that opportunity so freaking amazing for me to leave. What I have been able to establish here, can't do that again. Without the right conditions. I mean, that goes the same for everybody. You need to have the right conditions for you, whatever they may be, and wherever you go. And that's just kind of how we have to go with it. But yeah, when it came to that, one of the nice perks about people leaving and moving is they have to abandon things. And so I ended up acquiring some new stuff, and I have a new cooler now, and another Pyrex baking dish, which I was surprised that somebody threw out. But I guess looking at it and how much time I spent on on using a Brillo pad, basically a steel wool with soap, to take off all of the cooking grime and whatever was baked onto it, that somebody was just way too lazy to keep it around. So I ended up acquiring another Pyrex, which is great because I've been on a freaking baking spree. I mean, I'm thinking about all of the random stuff I've been making, and it's been fun, posting all my food porn on the internet, and thanks to everyone who's been watching all the food porn I've been making on the internet. Because my income has kind of been waning, I have found that the most fun entertainment I have, because most of the time cooking for one's hard, but I'm finding quite interesting and entertaining is that I'm able to cook and make food and share it with everyone. That's been fun. Especially because there have been so many recipes that I've seen on the internet that I've thought that were really cool. And of course I put my own little twist in it, or I modify it somehow, or I change a step because I think that it's, more my style and it's a bit more efficient for the dish that I'm making. But so far I've gotten some really good feedback over the cookies, and I made brownies this morning and left them for the office. And then last night's mac and cheese was freaking amazing, and I was able to share that with 2 other people. And the leftovers have been reduced to a single, square sandwich container. So they'll tell you how quickly that baked mac and cheese with the Gruyere cheese that's like $10 for half a pound, totally worth it. And it was like this crazy little adventure. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to make for dinner? And I'm on the internet and I'm thinking, okay, I have these pasta shells that are still in my pantry and I really would like to get rid of them. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay, what works well with shells? And it turned out it was going to be some sort of cheesy sauce. So I'm thinking, oh, well, let me just look up mac and cheese. And I'm searching on the internet and I find this mac and cheese recipe that is just freaking amazing. And I'm thinking, okay, so my friend's over. And we're looking on the computer, and she's like, oh, man, you got to do this one. And I'm looking at the ingredients. I have most of the ingredients, flour and things like that. But then I realized that I have to acquire a few things, one of them being sharp cheddar off the block. All the cheese was, they were in the recipe not to be pre-shredded. You had to, get the block and actually shred the cheese. Because freshly shredded cheese compared to cheese that has been pre-shredded and then packaged, there's a severe difference between the two. And also there's usually the shredded cheese that's already in the bags. There's a reason why it's cheap. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I got to go reacquire 3 kinds of cheese. I realized I didn't own a cheese grater, and I also needed a dish dryer. So I'm like, okay, I got to go to IKEA. So this ended up becoming, I had to run to 3 stores to make this grilled cheese. So the first thing I did was 4 stores, now that I think about it. So one of the ingredients for this mac and cheese recipe, which if you're curious about the cheese recipe, I can definitely share it with you. It's no secret what I did. I don't believe in that kind of secret stuff. Everyone's open to interpretation, but I will send you the recipe that I used more or less for this macaroni and cheese. And so I read through the ingredients, and it called for paprika. Now, I didn't have any paprika, and it was suggesting that I went and get smoked paprika. And, having being spoiled and Torrance being next door, I decided, and also thanks to Google checking the hours for Penzeys Spices, the physical Penzeys Spices store in Torrance, which was less than 3 miles away from me anyway, went and got smoked Spanish paprika in a tiny little jar. So that's about, $4 jar of paprika. This is also the same place where I went and picked up my little thing of Vietnamese cinnamon that I used on the cookies that I made 2 weeks ago. So, or was it 2.5? Something like that. Time flies when you're having fun. So first off, I go acquire the spices. After that, I'm on the motorcycle, head over to IKEA. I'm a little hungry, so I go pick up my free coffee, IKEA family card, and then a slice of pizza, and just to buy myself some time because I was kind of hungry. I hadn't eaten anything all day. Went in, got myself a cheese grater and a dish drying rack, so got out of there, and then headed over to Ralph's, and I learned quickly that in order to get any sort of Gruyere, you can't go to Ralph's unless you go to like a really like bougie Ralph's, like in Brentwood or some shit. Like, yeah, I went to the one in Gardena. They didn't have that particular cheese, and they didn't have the Parmesan, the hard Parmesan cheese that I needed either. However, they had a nice block of sharp cheddar from Joseph Farms, and I decided to go with that. So then I picked that up. I also picked up a couple of the other things that I needed, like the heavy cream and some of the basic ingredients that I needed, like more butter, things, And then after that, I'm thinking, okay, I need to get this cheese. So that's third location's Ralph's. Head all the way down Redondo Beach Boulevard, Sprouts. And yes, Sprouts did have both of those cheeses. Parmesan was sold by weight in little blocks, so that was very useful. I only had to get not even like a quarter pound of the stuff, because I only needed like maybe a quarter cup shredded. So the rule of thumb is a quarter pound of cheese equates to about a cup shredded. So that's your rule of thumb. You might have a little bit of extra cheese left, but you're not going to have that much. So I go get the Gruyere, which turns out they only have two types, and they're both freaking expensive. I went for the lesser expensive one, which was only aged 5 months instead of 11 months. But, if you're making a mac and cheese and really it's going to be, majority of it will be sharp cheddar, there's really no reason that you need to have, the cheese, to really, you don't need that much Gruyere. But it was just enough to, bring it out. And so I followed package. It's not a craft dinner, but I followed the instructions on how to do it. And very simply, if you're going to be doing a baked mac and cheese and you're preparing the macaroni or the pasta, basically, you want to make sure that you cook it 1 minute below al dente, because when you throw it in the oven, because you're going to be crisping those panko breadcrumbs. Yes, panko breadcrumbs. That was amazing. And you got to leave it, because the shells are going to continue to cook as you're baking the stuff. So you want to make sure that they're not too soggy as you mix this cheese in. So yeah, I'm mixing all the stuff, melted butter and flour and cream and milk and all the cheese that I had to shred. I had to shred 4 cups of sharp cheddar, about 2 cups of Gruyere, and I hope that I'm not even I'm pronouncing that correctly, but yes, that is expensive. I just call it the expensive cheese, and then about a quarter cup of the Parmesan does not melt. That was being mixed with the breadcrumbs that went on top of the whole thing. So with that being said, if you get on my Instagram, you're going to see the videos of the nice stir-in that I did there. And yes, I did make sure that when I did make these shells and I drained them, and of course I got a little help from my friends here, while we're making this, I made sure that the rats did get their cooked pasta, because occasionally, you want to give them little treats like that, because then they know that you're their friend and they don't bite the crap out of you. Which, if I just go on an aside right now, because I didn't have to clean the rats again on Saturday, actually on Sunday morning, I think that the babies are improving, and I'm getting to the point where I'm not getting bit randomly, and I'm very grateful for that, because like I said, I'm still counting my fingers, and I still have 10 of them, so I think I'm doing a pretty good job raising these things. It's kind of like being a parent to any sort of other smaller being, whether it be human or animal. Sometimes you can be just sitting in a car or being on your motorcycle with your helmet on and just contemplating, am I really doing the right thing? Am I raising these young things correctly? And I'm glad to say that at least I think the babies that I have are turning out okay. I just got to keep working on them, but I'm going to get them to the point where I can pick them up without any question. They just need more interaction time, and I'll keep playing with them. I'm still not at the point where they want to be picked up easily, but at least they're not trying to chomp me. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, so this entire mac and cheese project that I did, and it filled up an entire standard Pyrex pan. It took approximately about an hour total. That's including cooking time. I had to put it in the oven at 350 degrees after I laid down the panko crumb mix, which involved the paprika that I was talking about, melted butter, and what else did I put in? Well, the paprika, the melted butter, and a couple other things. But one of the things, though, that I just realized that I had forgotten to do, and I'm just not a big fan of seasoning food before I put it in to cook, but I did omit the optional salt and pepper for taste, because here's my thing. Okay, if I'm cooking for more than, myself, I don't know what the preferences are for people in their seasoning. So I actually omitted it on purpose, because if you really want more sea salt, or you want to put some pepper on that, or in the case of one of my friends who showed up to have this garlic powder, I mean, hey, whatever, that is a personal preference, and I let you do that at your discretion. We don't have to, if you're trying to make, if you're making a dish for everyone, you want to make sure that it's adjustable enough, and that the key flavors that you were trying to get across are the ones that are there. But you don't need to put in, like, I don't like excessive salt in my stuff, but I knew someone who did, and as much as good as the food was, I couldn't deal with, like, how salty the food was, and that was a big issue for me. So it's a matter of consideration here. I know that there's a joke that certain people, when they cook their food, they make it so bland that nobody, it's like, yeah, the reason why they make it bland is because they have to make sure that everyone's happy. You can adjust it to your whim, and especially seasonings that are salt based. Yeah, you don't want to do that, because some people just don't need that kind of salt. Like, I don't. I mean, my body hates salt, like excessive amounts. I mean, most bodies hate excessive salt. But for me personally, just not even a preference. I mean, I don't even like things that are too sweet. Like, you just kind of, you just go with what you like. Everyone's taste buds are different. But yeah, this weekend really has been a lot of cleaning and a lot of just organizing again, and I'm just trying to keep things together here before I, take off on another round of jobs that I'm trying to do here, and just getting by, and that's just where we are. So as we're talking, and I know that this has gone on a little bit longer than I normally broadcast, but with it being week 8, and I don't know what I'm going to be thinking about for week 9, because I do these on kind of a from the hip and off the cuff. So it's I'm now in Westwood, approaching that other college that I tried to get into, but they rejected me twice. I think the Bruins live there or something. Anyway, so yeah, I'm approaching Westwood, and probably about to approach the Hill. Sepulveda Pass is usually where the cell phone reception just goes to crap. So with that being said, I really enjoyed that mac and cheese experiment, and after I did that, I went ahead and did a brownie experiment, which turned out well, except for the fact that I need to buy cooking spray, and I need to spray the silicone cups for the brownies before I do that again. Otherwise, you kind of end up having to serve the brownies in the silicone cups because you can't pull them out. But that's a minor issue, and it's okay. Although I did have some fun with a scoop of ice cream, and I made it into a perfect little cute ball, and I put it in the on top of that warm brownie, and then enjoyed that for my dessert for dinner after mac and cheese. So hey, you know what? I can't argue. That's quite nice. So anyway, with that being said, as I leave the Westwood area and I'm heading on toward the 405, I will talk to you all later. Y'all be good. Moving out of state is not for everyone, and eat mac and cheese. And if you have the time to make the gourmet stuff instead of the craft dinner like everyone else likes to do, if you don't have any time, I'll tell you, it's totally worth it. And you got to do it at least once. I will admit that's the first time I've ever made my own version of mac and cheese. And I will say that aside from lumpia, which is my usual other go-to when I make party food, I think mac and cheese is definitely going to be on my radar here for another if I have to go to another party or a potluck. That would be freaking amazing. My other go-to is a pesto penne pasta that I make. That's my other go-to for party food. As you probably noticed, I like noodle-based stuff just because it's really easy to make, but at the same time, you can please a lot of people. For people who like cheese or aren't, too lactose intolerant, that mac and cheese dish is a nice option. But for those who are more on the vegetarian side, I like to do the pesto because I know for a fact that is vegan and that's okay. So, or vegetarian at least. I have to get in more into the preferences of vegan food, which I've had quite a bit of and I really enjoy. And I had like veggie burgers on Saturday during the motorcycle open house, and that's all they had. And people were like, "No, I don't want to eat veggie burgers." I'm all like, "Bring it on!" And they were very delicious. I don't know why people don't like veggie burgers, because they're actually pretty good. And this is me being a meat. I have a preference for meat, and you know what? I'll totally eat a veggie burger if it's offered to me. It doesn't hurt me, and it actually tastes pretty good, and it was very filling. So there you go. Anyway, be good out there. Do your thing, and stay safe on the roads. And for the love of God, if it says 35, don't freaking do 60 in a 35 zone. Seriously, that is just stupid, because I'm going to catch up with you in the end after I did 10 over, which is also bad for me too. Anyway, be nice, be good, just don't be a douche, and enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I hope to see you online soon. Have a good rest of your week, all that fun jazz. Check you later.